does having a musical background greatly influence the way you make noise and electronic music?
Frank always says that because I studied in music, it gives me some kind of a great advantage versus other people who don't have that thing. So Frank, tell us why. Why do you think having a musical background is...
helps? Well, not for us, like for music basically. Having a musical background, you know a thing or two about doing melodies, rhythm, percussions, which is another type of rhythm basically. So you have a certain experience knowing not the notes, manipulations of sound, because you had courses in that. Whilst I never had anything like that, the only experience I have is listening to a shitload of stuff, which influenced me, and maybe not, because I like to do my thing and try to do the best at what I can do and expand myself. But the only reason I feel that you have an advantage because of the music and training is, like I say, you know the notes, you could do a rhythm, you could do a melody, you could do percussions, you could generate a real fucking song with a song structure per se, amidst the people that don't have that knowledge, and that's basically it, I think.
So the people who are self-taught, the people who never took musical classes but to learn to play the instruments themselves, you think they have another advantage too, or is it the same thing as not having any kind of musical background?
I'd say it's the same thing, because they learn by themselves, and they probably learn by ear basically, because they don't have a musical background, so you don't know the notes. But learning by ear, they could probably generate their own melodies and whatnot, and do their own songs. So they have, you could say they have a certain type of advantage, a certain type, depending on exactly what you mean by music and what you want to do with music.
Well, I think that up to a certain degree it's kind of bullshit, because anybody who's ever listened to the kind of stuff that I do, people would never believe that I actually have a musical background, that I actually studied music, because in fact I pretty much go out of my way not to fall into the stereotypical categories that are taught at an early age in terms of what music is supposed to be when you take classes. Now, of course, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. Quite the opposite.
A certain knowledge that I don't have.
The people who have classical musical backgrounds, actually, the fact that they know the whole mechanics and how music, harmony, rhythm, pacing, and all that. Oh, that's what I was saying. Thank you very much.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. Well, at least they know how it works, so they can actually play around it. So it's very easy for those people to actually be able to craft stuff that doesn't sound classical, that doesn't sound typical, even though they could if they wanted to. Which is why it's always very interesting to hear people who are classically trained doing something that is a bit more contemporary.
Kirk Hammett, Metallica, is a classically trained guitarist.
Well, the guys from Queen, a couple of guys from Pink Floyd, I mean, Genesis, the original Genesis from the 70s, they were all classically trained. But the thing is that what Frank doesn't grasp in terms of what I do is how the musical knowledge that I acquired doesn't really count for much in terms of the noise stuff or in terms of the experimental stuff, because that's more about an expression and an exploration of sound and how you're supposed to be constructing it and assembling it together for it to have some kind of a somewhat aesthetic sense, even though sometimes it is not quite pleasing to hear.
Or to generate maybe a feeling and emotion, a type of reaction basically.
But again, that's all subjective. It all depends upon the listener. The listener is the one who has the final word in terms of what the piece, the song has to say. In terms of the creator of the piece itself, you're almost like a puppet trying to mime your way into a murky, a very subjective form of sound, and you hope that something out of it comes out a little bit more concrete for the listener, although pretty much most of the time you're just shooting yourself in the dark and wondering, well, here's what I'm trying to do, and let's hope people are going to get it, which is why, people come out with like song titles, song names, and they have to explain a specific song, saying, well, this is what I was trying to do, but again, in the end, it's the listener that has the final word. So I can actually vouch the fact that maybe Frank has a point in terms that it's easier for somebody with a musical background to actually generate something that is much more
Song structure.
structured oriented. You're right. It is easier for that, but that doesn't mean that somebody who does not have any kind of musical know-how cannot actually generate something with interest. The thing is that yeah, but I always say when there's, especially when it comes to music, and especially noise, experimental, and electronic music, if you really want to do something, there is always a way to do it. And the way to do it is very simple, is you have to, the old idiom rings true.
You do your own thing.
Practice.
You do your own thing. You don't give a flying fuck about the reaction of other people, because assholes are like opinions. Everybody's got one. So like, you do your own thing. You enjoy doing it. You try to better yourself every time. And that would be like the challenge for every musician or noiser per se, I feel.
I think that's pretty much it. But to finish off on my point, I think it's full of shit that Frank uses the crutch of the fact that I have a musical background, so it's easier for me to do what I do versus him. I think that if Frank would want to apply himself a lot more, he could, like, you know, beat pretty much everybody pants down with his own, like, inner vision, which he is able to actually extrapolate in the means that he can. So
it's getting there, though.
Yeah, it's true. So like I say, it's a process. It's very important for people to realize that, you know, something that you've done maybe 15 years ago is not relevant anymore, not in terms of sound and style and stuff like that, but more in
terms
terms
of the moment, but that's normal.
It's true, but we don't really care about that. I think it's more about the evolution of the creator, of the person who's actually trying to mold sound and stuff out of pure nothingness. So I think that it is very important to have, if you're trying to do something that is musically oriented, that has some kind of structure, which has, like, you know, pleasing harmonics and doesn't sound too chaotic, yes, it is important to have a certain grasp of music and rhythm, but at the same time, I don't think it is absolutely necessary, depending on exactly what it is that you're trying to do, because you don't have to have taken classes, and you don't have to be, like, you know, musically inclined, you know. All you have to do is have a love for the thing and be able to practice and practice and
passion and interest.
That's right.
And if I could give you an advice to anybody, don't follow trends. Do your own thing. I don't want to say sound obnoxious, do your own trend, but you do your own thing. If you believe in it, it doesn't matter what people say or think. There's a sucker porn every minute. I'm just kidding here, but I mean, it doesn't matter what people say or think, or reviews and critics. One day they'll fucking they'll rave you, not review. You want to. One day they'll put you down, and the next day you're a fucking genius. But then the next day you're not the flavor of the day, so they forgot about you. Ever heard about Moby? Remember him? It's 2013. And 10 years from now, will somebody remember the name Skrillex? Good question.